So despite all of this social justice and all of this social action and unity, and let's come together and let's fight for everybody's rights, I don't think we've ever been as divided as we are right now, especially those of us in the Western world. I feel like we are so divided right now. It's unbelievable. Everybody is against everybody. Everybody's fighting for themselves, for their own camp, whether you're black, white, Asian, male, female, gay, straight, Christian, I don't know, Islamic, whatever it is. Everybody is fighting so hard, and the division has never been stronger. Now, I want to talk about this, guys, because I think we as humans are very fundamentally stupid, and that goes across the board, right? Because we are the ones who think that somehow by our own understanding, by our own plans, we're going to achieve what we're going to achieve. You can see this right now very clearly in the United States of America, right? Because what happened, the current sitting president, right, the OAP that sits right now in the presidency position, in the leader of the free world right now, who claimed that he was going to bring all this freedom and all this peace and all this whatever, there could not be more destruction, division, and chaos since this man was sworn in as president. And it's not just him, it's across the board. And I want to ask why this is. I want to ask why this is happening. And I want to actually get us to stop for a second and think about how all of our actions have led us to where we are right now, because that's what's happened, guys. Every single thing that has happened up until this point, right? We are the ones who decide what's happening in the world. We are the ones who vote for the people we want to vote for. We are the ones who go on social media and support who we want to support. And I think the running theme that I've noticed in all of this is the fact that, sorry, I was just looking at my notes. The one thing that I've noticed more than, the one thing I've noticed now is that it all comes down to selfishness. It all comes down to selfishness. It was never about unity. It was never about social justice. Everybody just wants to get their voice heard. They want to feel sorry for themselves. They want to feel like the victim. They want to get attention, and they want to get special treatment. And that's the problem. Because if everybody's fighting for special treatment for themselves, if everybody's a victim, then we're never going to be able to agree on anything, because we're always going to be fighting harder for ourselves than we are going to fight for the rights for everybody. So, for example, there were people speaking up. I'm going to give you guys some examples of how I feel like this is happening and how it's just causing more and more division. We'll start with something less provocative, I guess, for the society that we live in. Veganism and just animal cruelty and all this stuff, right? Great, starts out great. And a lot of these, they start out great, but they go too far. Started out great. We started with, people saying we're wasting a lot. I am somebody who really has always found waste annoying. I was taught, growing up, that waste not, want not, like you don't waste stuff, everything is precious that we have. So I've always been about not wasting food, not wasting stuff. It's one of the reasons I love cooking, because I can always utilize leftovers or whatever. I love all that stuff, right? So wasting food is like kind of the first part. I understood that, or the treatment of animals. I'm in agreement with that, and it's not really about me. Let's just talk about this, not even with my perspective involved. But what's now happening on the other end is people are having these very illogical views where they're trying to tell the whole world that they need to go vegan, and the whole world needs to stop this animal cruelty, to the point where now animals are being treated better, are being defended more than humans. People are caring more about saving, a little family of ducks locally towards them than the hundreds and thousands of people living in poverty, maybe even in your own town, in your own city. Some of these people will walk past a homeless person, won't even offer them any food, but then will be online talking about how you guys need to care more for the planet. How inhumane are you to kill an animal? How inhumane are you to walk past a homeless person? But you don't want to deal with that, because why? Because you want to have something that suits you. A lot of these people who go vegan, I've said this before and I'll say it again, a lot of them were never big meat eaters in the first place. A lot of them just enjoy having a part of the community. A lot of them end up being unvegan after some time for many different reasons. So why did they get involved in veganism in the first place? Not really because they cared about the animals. A lot of the time it was something selfish, and it was something that, oh, now I have a community to be a part of. Oh, now I never really ate meat anyway, so it's not a huge sacrifice. That isn't you being loving. If you don't sacrifice a lot, that's not you being loving towards something. That's why there's a lot of things that I do. I'm not making a huge sacrifice in my life, so I'm not going to act like I'm doing something huge for the planet or huge for anybody in doing that, because it's not a huge sacrifice to me, right? So we have that argument, right? That one goes too far. And then the people who are doing it, they start to act like they're holier than thou. Like, we're the ones protecting the planet. We're the ones who are looking at, who care about, you know, the climate. We're the ones who protect the animals. You guys are just, you meat eaters and you whatever eaters. You guys are just selfish individuals. You only want to do what's right for yourself. Like, do you not think we miss meat as well? It's like, and you see what I mean about the division? It's like, if this is supposed to be about us furthering the world, and you should be happy just putting out your message. Yes, bringing attention to things. I'm glad that was like, this is why I mentioned the waste and stuff. It's good to talk about waste. It's good to talk about waste. It's good to bring this to people's attention, or even the treatment of animals, because it did hold a lot of people accountable. That's great. That's amazing. For you now then to try and enforce upon everybody that you think everybody in the world needs to be vegan now, there are some issues in that. There are some places in the world where that's just not feasible. It's just not doable. In fact, I would go as far as to argue that eating a completely vegan diet is actually very much a privilege for us, especially for those of us in the Western world, because a lot of people eating vegan, and let's not forget this, right? And this is what I'm saying, these things cause division. They don't really make sense. A lot of people who are in the vegan community don't think about the fact that a lot of the fruits and vegetables and stuff you're eating, they don't grow in the country that you're living in. Your country, especially those of us in the UK and the USA, right? We don't grow a lot of these exotic fruits, these goji berries and all these things that we're getting. They're being flown in, they're being shipped in. So you're thinking about your effects on the climate when you're eating 12 avocados a day, right? And you're somebody that lives in the UK. Have you thinking about where that's coming from? So you're trying to be holier than thou about that, right? Than somebody else who, for example, might have chickens in their garden, like somebody who might have chickens in their garden, or who might be eating meat that at least came from the UK. At least it was, you know, Scottish beef or something. At least it was, you know, British beef or something. And at least, do you see what I'm saying? So there's a hypocrisy in there. And again, it comes down to selfishness. It's not really about, and that's why I'm saying it causes division, because it was never really about, a lot of this stuff I don't think was ever really about what people were saying it was about. I think it was just about what bandwagon can I jump on that is going to benefit me. Same thing with the black people thing. I've noticed now that there's a lot of black people who just hold on. Like, there have been movements. I'm so sorry to tell you guys in the black community, you don't want to hear this, right? I'm not sorry to tell you, because you need to hear this. There have been some serious movements for black people since all of this George Floyd black BLM stuff has gone on. Black people are more on the map. More people, I'm noticing even on social media, more people are trying, you know, like say African food, just seeing more and more black people in different types of TV shows and stuff like that, right? Albeit there are still issues, which I highlighted some in a previous video, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying it's more happening. Like, I don't feel like we are as victims as we want to make ourselves out to be sometimes, right? Which is why I don't really victimize myself as a black person. I don't see myself as a victim, because look, the same platform right now that other people are on, I can be on here. Now, there are definitely things to address, as far as, you know, similar to the veganism argument. There are things that needed to be addressed, i.e. the fact that, you know, there is a lot of abuse of black culture, don't get me wrong. Or maybe not abuse, but maybe exploitation, where people will use it and they'll get, you know, credit, you know, money, fame, whatever for it, and we tend to get less of it. I still agree that we're still a work in progress in that, but that doesn't mean it needs to become a point of, just because those things are there now, every person becomes a racist. Every single thing is cultural appropriation. Do you see how these things like can start off good and there can be some truth in them, but then it just ultimately leads to division? And it's because when it's going past the point of productivity and into the point of like just chaos, it's always at the part where we all want to just be selfish and enforce something and feel like the victim ourselves, which ultimately causes division, because then there's going to be people on the other side like, whoa, now you're encroaching on my boundaries, now you're encroaching on what's going on here. Or in the case of black people, there's going to be people like, whoa, do you not know how much I've shifted my company in the last couple of years, you know, as a result of what's being said, and you're still trying to call me a racist for something so small, right? Is crazy, you know. And so there's things like that goes on, which is what I'm saying is causing more division. It started out well, but it didn't. And why is it going that far? Because a lot of the people who were behind it, it wasn't ever about some noble, we want to move forward, we want to try and gain, you know, more understanding for black people. It was a bunch of black people who wanted to feel sorry for themselves, and a bunch of black people who wanted to enforce themselves and demand things from other people, and be entitled. In the same way it goes with this veganism stuff. It goes the same for the LGBTQ plus community. I'm going to go for as many as I think of in this video. Right? It started out that a lot of LGBTQ plus people felt that they didn't have rights or places to do certain things, right? And I've told you guys that, you know, I believe that God gives us all free will. So what we can all live whatever life we want to live. Now, we will be held accountable for how we choose to live, but God does give us the right to live the way we want to live, right? So I understand why so many people in the LGBTQ plus felt like they wanted to, you know, fight for so many different types of rights and so on and so forth. But then it goes too far when you are now going to seeing this girl who went and peed in this girl in France who went into a church, right, peed on the floor and then pretended to stab the embryo, as in she used a calf's liver and pretended it was the embryo of Jesus Christ, and she stabbed it in a church building. That's too far, right? You see what I'm saying? You might disagree with people, the church. You might fundamentally disagree with a lot of people. That's taking it too far. Now you're just doing it. You're enforcing now you're being the forceful individuals that you don't want to hear. And then now if people clap back, let's say the whole Christian community claps back now at whoever. I think her thing wasn't even about the LGBTQ plus. I think that was about pro-life and pro-choice, actually. But you know, you guys get the gist of where I'm coming from, right? Because it's kind of like all these things that people do, like where they, you know, like these stupid things that people do where you have like what was it? It's Addison Rae had the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, like stupid bikini and all this different stuff people feel so comfortable to make fun of, right? So it's like if people now clap back, then it's going to cause more division, right? Because then it's going to be like, well, I feel like you're doing this because you people don't accept gay people. And it's like, it's not about that. It's about you wanting to enforce your, like the people who are being forced to make these wedding cakes for like this cake shop that refused to make a wedding cake for a couple because the couple was gay, and I think the wedding shop from their belief system didn't agree with that and didn't want to make the cake, which I think they have the right to do. It is their cake shop. In the same way that the gay couple has their right to be a gay couple, go and find somebody else. Why do you have to enforce your opinion? Because when we're enforcing more than what is fair, then it causes division. But we continue to do that. It's the same with the pro-life and the pro-choice thing that I just gave. The example of the girl peeing in the cathedral. It's the same argument. So many people were not necessarily trying to shut down abortion altogether, even people like myself who fundamentally disagree with it. The reason why Roe v. Wade ends up getting overturned is because there were laws coming into effect that babies were going to be killed up to like 28 days after birth, after being alive. It was so that, you know, babies who had been failed abortions and then stillborn would still be born, not they weren't stillborn but would still be born, would then still be able to be killed on the other end. So we're not talking about the people where people say like, oh, you know, what starts off as, oh, but what about the people who've been, you know, R-worded, and people where it's, you know, incest and all this stuff because whatever. Like we started there, and people were willing to allow that and not turn a blind eye, but allow people to exercise their free will over there. But then we take it too far, and then when you take it too far and you get clapped back, then it causes division. And it's like all of these different topics areas, right? Now we have the feminism is another one, right? Feminism has created another beast, because feminism, yes, there were rights that were needed for women, right? Because yes, you know, even my own grandmother, when she was when she used to work, her salary went automatically into my grandfather's bank account. Like how would you deal, some of you feminists today, with some of that stuff, right? And so I know that there was changes that needed to be made. You know, women weren't able to vote, and the people who were part of these movements early on, they had specific things they wanted that were fair and that were fair on all parties. But now I've gone to the other end, where women just want to be in control of everything. We don't even care what men have to say. We don't even care about how they feel. In fact, we were more entitled to the children. We're entitled to whatever we want if we have a divorce. And we've birthed the red pill community now, which has caused what? Division, because now we've got the women against the men, and then the women who agree with the men become known as pick-me's. The men who agree with the women are considered too feminine, and it's like, it's all just so much freaking division. And it's because at the end of the day, people are just being selfish. The feminists who are pushing too far over the line into this whole tyrannical woman type, let's worship the woman, let's worship femininity type vibe, those are the selfish women who just want to enforce. They want to be the enforcers. They want to dominate. They want to dominate the men. And that's why I get why there's men who are like, we're not about this. We're not trying to, like, we need to reinstate masculinity. We want to, you know, and it's sad that men even have to say, like, they don't say it, but I'll say it on their behalf. They have feelings too. They have rights too. They have opinions too. They have ways that they want to, things that they want to do to raise their children. They give a damn about being fathers. They give a damn about being husbands. You know what I'm saying? But then we don't see that, because we're having all of this overdoing of this feminism business. Y'all listening to Cardi B, Meg Thee Stallion, and all these other completely destructive, unhelpful women out there. and it's causing division. And it's like all of these things is causing so much division for us in the world today, right? And we've got to stop and ask ourselves, you know, what are you really fighting for? Like, if I were you and you're watching this video right now, especially if you're this far through, I would actually highly recommend that you just step away from the space of social justice, social action, wokeness, and everything, and just start to live your life from a place of, like, you know, being fair and fair to everybody, and understanding that we're all different. We all have different wants, different needs. That's why I don't believe in prescribing to anybody to live their life exactly the way I do, because you're different. There's might be, like, I don't think there's anything wrong, like going back to something like the veganism thing, I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody who believes in veganism because they feel like killing animals is wrong. That's fine. That just means that, but that also doesn't mean you have to go and then enforce onto somebody else, right, that they have to do that just because you feel convicted about it. You're a unique person. Like, God made us all uniquely different, you know, in our own different ways. And I believe in the ways that we are different, there is a sense of balance in the earth for that. Do you see what I'm saying? So that when we all live to how we were created to be individually, and we respect one another, right, there would be a better sense of balance. But we don't have that because we're all busy really realistically being selfish, trying to make it seem like, oh, we're these selfless beings, like, oh, I really care about the animals, oh, I really care about this, when we really just care about ourselves. If we're really being honest about it, I feel like if we could throw those ridiculous ways out the window and actually you know, start to respect one another, that's when we'll see unity. Because you know what unity comes in? I think unity actually comes from accepting individuality, and that everybody's going to be an individual. Every individual has their own rights that they're entitled to, has their own rights to boundaries that they have the right to be respected, and has the right to live the way they want to live. If God cannot take away my free will, nobody else can. And that's whether I'm a vegan, that's whether I'm a meat eater, that's whether I'm that's whether I'm, you know, whatever it is. I'm not going to start naming names. That's whether I'm black, that's whether I'm white, okay? But the only thing I will say, and this is the important thing, because we will be held accountable regardless. We will all be held accountable in this life and in the next life, you know what I mean, for what we choose to do and what we choose not to do, how we choose to utilize that free will. Just because we have the free will to use doesn't mean we won't be held accountable. And I think that's what people forget, that yes, you can enforce all of your opinions on people, but just know that you're going to be accountable. We're all going to be accountable for the generations that are coming from us, and from all this terrible division that we're causing. I mean, kids are having to debate about stuff they shouldn't even have to be worrying about. Kids should be worrying about playing with stuff, discovering the things that they love to do in this world, you know, playing sports, hanging out with their friends, doing artwork, learning how to read and write, things that like adults struggle with. How many adults, like, as somebody who teaches maths, by the way, I teach maths, and the two of the subjects I teach is maths and chemistry. I find it so crazy how much time we spend teaching kids all this other stuff, when most people a lot of people I meet, probably most people I meet, when I tell them, oh yeah, I teach maths and chemistry, they're like, oh, wow, I've always struggled with maths and chemistry. Like, maths, I could never do maths. I struggled to. So the basic things that people need to be able to do, but are not being focused on. But at the same time, we're telling kids to worry about at like 7 years old if they need to change their gender, and doctors are the ones pushing this stuff. It's like, it's not hate speech for me to say that. It's just like, can we focus on the task at hand here? Can we think in the long term, and can we think about how we're going to use our free will? Because I'll tell you something, and I'll say this now, that 10 years from now, whatever happens, whatever is the result of all of this, y'all better not be talking about, well, why didn't God stop this and that? You used your free will that he gave you to make the decisions you're making right now. So don't be like wondering where things come from 10 years from now. Because even the stuff we're dealing with now, people are like, oh, how did this happen? How did that happen? It happens because of humans. This is why, one of the reasons why I talk about free will so much on my channel, and why I'm talking about this division and stuff and all of this, right? Because I'm thinking to myself, people always have this tendency to be like, if God is real, why is there suffering in the world? There's suffering because there's selfish people. There's suffering because there's selfish people who want to impose what they want onto others, who want to be controlling, who want to be manipulative, who want to be selfish, and they use their free will to do such. So if you don't want there to be suffering in the world, then stop doing that. And stop blaming God when things go wrong, but then when things go right, it's all you, you know? And this is one of those things, I'm not even going to get into it in this video. But anyways, that's all I got to say on this one for that matter, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have, please let me know your thoughts on all this division that's going on, and how interesting it is that we, despite trying to be so far going towards unity and inclusivity and diversity and every other itty that we've been talking about, We're actually so far away from it now. We've actually gone backwards. And in a way, it's almost even more awkward to be around people these days. I don't know. Is it just me? You guys let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. If life's a game, then let's play to win. God bless every single one of you. And I'll see you in my next one. Goodbye.